Hello, good afternoon everyone. It is Melissa Johnson speaking. I am the psychologist at Thriving Mind Psychology Clinic, and of course I'm coming to you live today because, as promised, I decided to go live into the Mindset Mastery group to talk about some of my long distance running mind hacks that I use over the next 2 days. I should just hold this phone. It probably is a lot easier. Anyway, now look, the reason why this has come up is because I am running a half marathon on the weekend, and leading up to that I have been thinking about preparation. So of course there's preparation in terms of preparing your body and preparing your nutrition, but there is always preparation, well there is for me, in terms of mindset. So I was thinking about some of the strategies that have worked for me in the past, or that I like to employ when I am doing particularly long running. And it occurred to me that a lot of those strategies are things that can be applied to not just running, but anything where you are wanting to work on a goal or work towards something, or at any point in time when you're wanting to create some sort of change in your life. Now, if you've ever participated in any form of running, long distance paddling or bike riding or whatever your thing is, what you will know is, in general, it's uncomfortable. There is always a sense of discomfort because, of course, you're pushing your body to its limits, and that's fine. That's not an issue, but it is discomfort. For me, though, it's not so much the physical discomfort that can become the issue. Yes, you get muscle fatigue. Yes, you might have lactic acid. Yes, you might have increased heart rate or some difficulty breathing. Potentially, you can have all of those things from a physical aspect, but often the biggest battle is with our mind. And the reason why this happens is when we are experiencing a sense of discomfort, especially a physical discomfort, like that real visceral response that not only happens, let's say, in long distance running, but also when there's anxiety or panic or fear or stress, there's a very strong physical visceral response. When the body experiences that, it doesn't like it and it wants it to stop. That's the way our brain is wired. We're absolutely hardwired to get ourselves out of situations where we have that sense of anxiety and distress. It's fight or flight. So what happens is the mind will then start kicking in with a ton of strategies, a ton of excuses to get you out of that situation, which is fine. It's a problem though, because sometimes or often when we are working towards something, when we've got goals, when we're wanting to push our barriers, step outside of our comfort zone, we then start having a battle with our brain because it's telling you to stop. It's telling you don't worry about it. It's telling you can't do this. It's telling you can't breathe properly. It's telling you to give up. It's telling you you're not good enough, whatever it might be, because it wants you to get out of the situation and go back inside your bubble. Essentially, that's what's happening. Anyway, so it really is a battle with my mind anyway. So I use a couple of different strategies. My first one, and I've picked my two favorite. I'm going to talk about one today and I'm going to talk about one tomorrow. But the first one is very much in line with what I have spoken about before, of when we pick our big goals, we need to then reverse engineer those goals and come up with smaller steps. We need to have bite-sized chunks so we can tackle them step by step to get to the big goal. So in the example of a half marathon, this particular one in Noosa is actually about 5Ks one way, 5Ks back, 5Ks back the other way and back again. So it's kind of like a few laps. It's a little bit more than 5Ks each way because it's 21.1 Ks. But for the sake of numbers, it's 5Ks each way, and you do that 4 times. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to break that down into smaller bite-sized chunks. Now, I've done this a few different ways in the past, but I'm going to try, and this time, just to break it down into 5K intervals. So each 5K set for me will be its own little race. So when I start, I will only be focusing on the first 5Ks, and I will make that my focus. When I get to the turnaround point, that's the time when I start to prepare myself and I start to do a body scan and see how my body's going. And then at that turn point, I very, very clearly and strongly say to myself, okay, this is our reset. Quite literally, I tell my body and my brain that we are starting a whole new race, okay? That race is behind us, we are now moving forward, and this is a new race, and I'll only focus on that next 5K, and I will do that backwards and forwards. So that is how I work that in terms of breaking that 21.1 Ks down, or your big goal, into smaller bite-sized chunks. Sometimes I have even broken it down even smaller. In previous years, when I've done this many years ago, I've actually picked landmarks, and they kind of worked out to be about 1K at 1K intervals, and I would literally focus on each 1K as I went, and as I passed that 1K mark, I would tell myself that it was a whole new race, okay? I would let everything else go behind me. If I felt it wasn't a good leg, if I felt that I was struggling, if I felt that, I wasn't fast enough, I was too slow, whatever it was, I would completely just leave that behind me, take a few deep breaths, and start fresh and move forward. So that's what I'm planning on doing for the half marathon, is to breaking that down into 4 lots of 5Ks essentially. Now, if in that first 5Ks I feel like that's too long, what I'll be doing is looking out for landmarks. So usually there's things like water stations, and that actually I know that they're having some music, some bands along the way, so maybe I'll use them as landmarks, and I will break those 5Ks down even further if I need to, and then just focus on each of those legs. So that is it. That is my first mind hack. It really is about knowing your long-term goal, your big picture goal, and then figuring out a way to reverse engineer that and make it into smaller chunks, and you focus on that chunk at each time, and then you move on to the next part. It's so important to understand and to realize that no matter what we're doing, there is always going to be a sense of discomfort. Even when we're working towards something that we really want, there's always going to be discomfort because it's new and it's unfamiliar and it's not something that we've done before. If we have done it before, it's a completely different experience. So it's important to understand that the brain will always generate for you lots of escape clauses to get out. And it's your job to continue to keep refocusing back on that one section, and you might even decide to set an agenda for each of those sections. So for me, if I know that perhaps it's my breathing that's becoming irregular, I will focus that as my absolute intention for the next 5Ks, and I'll focus on re-regulating my breath. Perhaps the intention for the next 5K would be to just have fun. Perhaps it's to focus in and listen to my music, and I'll turn that up, and that will be like a distraction technique. So I'll be focusing in and out on different things that I set as an intention as I turn the corner and start a new race each section. Hopefully that's helpful. I will be back tomorrow live for my next mind hack, which is actually one of my absolute favorites. So I look forward to it. Stay tuned. See you later.